They thought it was some kind of 10-day wonder. Everyone thought rock and roll would end when it did. And it was. I mean, rock and roll acts were really cool. Think about this. It's the end of the 1970s. MC Jagger is dressed in silk and sitting in a velvet-lined dressing room with a scotch in his hand. In the background, a band is playing loud music. He frowns, but not because of the drink. It's the sound. They're making too much noise, not because they're loud. Bands always tried to be better than the Stones, and Mick didn't like it when they did. Jagger didn't always make his anger known, but it was real. His charm hid a sense for competition, fakery, and people who pretended to be great, and his dislike for a band was sharp and long-lasting. These are the 6 bands that MC Jagger never liked, along with some reasons why. The first band he saw made him think they were way too serious, The Doors. Jagger didn't believe Jim Morrison's story about being a tortured artist. He thought it was a play, overblown and forced. The Stones drank and partied too much, but they never claimed it was spirituality. In Jagger's view, The Doors tried to mix rock and religion, but it just got too big. It got really bad in 1968 when their trips ran at the same time. Jagger didn't like Morrison's unpredictable behavior because he thought being professional was a badge of honor. Morrison is said to have been hours late to a show in Los Angeles and stumbled on stage, which slowed down the whole evening. Mick, who liked being in charge even when things were crazy, was angry about this. There was a lot of stress backstage. Roddy's told a few people that Jagger and Mad Morrison were arguing about who would end a joint event. The Doors said they left a creative legacy. The Stones made history. Neither gave up. Jagger didn't like the Doors because he thought they were too interested in their own secret. His view was that Morrison's stage image was too full of ego. He thought the Doors were a band that was trying too hard to make money. But Mick only wanted rock music to shake things up. When Jagger had a fight with the Doors, it was a classic case of mood versus movement. He also never forgot how the Fog tried to hide his fire. Then there was a band Mick called a marketing plan in leather. Give Jagger a Kiss. Kiss wasn't rock. Music-themed toys were in the line. The flame paint on their faces and bombast made him mad. He thought that people with real stage presence didn't need props. It was missing soul. In the late 1970s, when Kiss's fame was at its peak, Jagger was annoyed by the constant comparisons. Journalists called them the next Stones, which made him very angry. Not only did he disagree, he thought it was an insult to him. So, for example, when you're on the road, you have a bit more ego because you need it to deal with the crowd and the Stones' charm and danger. He thought Kiss was hiding behind smoke machines and comic book flair. When a promoter suggested that the Stones and Kiss play together as the main acts on a huge stadium tour in the U.S., the competition got nasty. It was said that Jagger shut it down right away by saying he wouldn't share the stage with a circus act. After that, the Cold War got worse. At award, the industry works and shows. Mick stayed away from the Kiss group like the plague. In a newspaper interview years later, Gene Simmons made fun of the Stones' old age and decreasing importance, which made Jagger even more annoyed. Behind closed doors, Mick would call Kiss clowns in boots and say that the band cared more about action figures than songs. They may have packed stadiums, but Jagger saw them as places to see shows, not listen to music. He thought that was the biggest lie rock could tell. The band that felt like an echo without a voice came next. Refuge. There was more to the Stone worship than just Oasis. It was their pride. At the same time that they said they were better, the Gallagher brothers always called Jagger and Richards heroes. Mick thought it went too far. In the 1990s, when Britpop was big, Jagger kept quiet in public, but he was furious behind closed doors. He thought Oasis acted like they made rebellion up, ignoring the plan that the Stones had made decades before. There were rumors that Jagger thought they were fakes dressed in old clothes who were living off of someone else's story. As Oasis started making fun of older bands in interviews, including the Stones, in subtle digs, things got worse. Mick is said to have left the room when Oasis took the stage at the 1996 Music Awards. The tension was noticed by security workers backstage. There was only cold air between the groups, no words or looks. They were very angry with each other after Noel Gallagher said that Oasis were bigger than the Rolling Stones. It wasn't just bravado, it was a sin. It was said that Mick threw his drink and stormed out of the room. After that, Oasis wasn't just a bother. They showed what rudeness looks like. To Jagger, they were a tribute band with a sense of power, like a shadow thinking it was a storm. Then there was the band he thought mixed up noise and power. Nirvana Jagger has never been one for grunge. He liked how raw the movement was, but Nirvana's anti-glam philosophy went against everything the Stones stood for: swagger, performance, and showmanship. Nirvana pulled chaos across the floor like a wound, while the Stones turned it into dance moves. It wasn't just a difference in style, it was a fight over ideas. In the early 1990s, Nirvana became the new rebel band, and Jagger felt the pain of Eraser. The cover of the magazine shows Kurt Cobain as the new voice of an age, which hints that Jagger's time was up. That message didn't make sense. When Jagger and members of Fall Nirvana were put in green rooms next to each other backstage at the 1992 MTV Awards, things got tense. People who were there say Jagger didn't talk to anyone at all, and said he didn't want to be in a funeral for fun. He didn't dislike Kurt Cobain, he hit him, but he hated how the media made Nirvana the new standard for rock music. It's like the past had to be torn down to make room. Fans of Nirvana made fun of older bands like the Stones for being flashy and self-centered, which made Jagger dislike them even more. He thought that Nirvana took the fun out of rock, which he couldn't forgive. Were not only loud, they were also sad, and in the mixed world, rock was meant to thrill, not sadden. This is another person Jagger dislikes. He thought the band was too complicated and not very passionate. Radiohead. I liked progress, but not if it meant giving up feeling. The intellectual and creative way that Radiohead played rock music annoyed him. It seemed to him that they made music to be thought about, not felt. His feelings were based on rules, not gut. The music wasn't made for a lot of people, but for music reviewers. In the early 2000s, radio often won awards in areas that the Stones used to dominate. Jagger felt the change and didn't like it. He thought that raw charm and emotional electricity were being changed into code, algorithms, and sound dissection. Even though there wasn't a physical fight, tensions rose over time. At a big festival, Jagger was supposed to go to a radio headset, but he left quickly when their sound check took too long, which pushed back his own practice. The word got around quickly. In private, he made fun of their songs while reading his diary under strobe lights. Another spark was when a reporter said Kid A was like Exile on Main Street Calling V, which was once a masterpiece of modern isolation and made the Stones' work seem old-fashioned in comparison. Reports say Jagger was very angry about it because he saw it as removal by elevation. He didn't hate them for being there. It hurt him that reviewers forgot how to feel when they were listening. He also thought that no band should ever need a decoder ring to get people moving. Finally, the band he thought summed up everything fake about current rock: weird music. Mick told them to be safe. That was the worst thing he could say. He thought that Coldplay's music, with its soft tones and catchy songs, was meant to please everyone and therefore didn't mean anything. It began slowly, but behind closed doors, The disrespect got louder. It is said that Jagger got angry when Coldplay was asked to lead Glastonbury in the same year that the Stones were turned down. He called it a watered-down age of rock. He didn't see their draw as success, but as giving up. They were a band meant to comfort, not challenge. Behind the scenes at a benefit dinner, Jagger and Chris Martin met. Sources say the conversation was short and cold. Jagger faked a smile and then turned away. Late that night, he was heard calling Coldplay the music version of airline food, something that everyone ate but no one remembered. He got angry when critics called Coldplay this generation's stadium giants. He thought that comparison was not only wrong but also rude. It took drama, sweat, and staying alive for the Stones to get where they were. Jagger thought that Coldplay had risen on marketing and music. Risk was how the Stones built their powers. The one Coldplay made was based on comfort, and MC Jagger thought there was no worse sin. Jagger is not scared. He hits and then smiles. But there was always a storm behind the beauty. He wasn't just after these 6 bands. They were dangers, challenges to the throne, or even worse, they made him think of what rock could turn into. Too weak, too smooth, or drained of danger. For Mick, rock wasn't just about sound. It had to do with sex, sweat, and shows. It had to do with confusion, leadership, and charm. He didn't want a band's name near his if they couldn't bring that to the stage. He saw himself as more than just a performer. He saw himself as a defender of what? An enduring memory that could not be made. That's why he kept his shine, not by being the biggest, but by being the smartest, the least sorry, and the only one who kept smiling while everyone else broke out in a cold sweat. He saw bands come and go, getting good reviews, being loved by young people, and being hailed as the next big thing. Still, no one could beat his speed, burn, or bite. He thought of them as storm gusts. And why? He was the thunder. They'd never walk like that. They'd never be him. Even though Jagger wasn't just rocks moving by, he was the heartbeat, and he dared anyone to beat him.